Hello. Hi, guys. How you doing? Anybody in here in real estate? I couldn't see when he had the... How many of you guys are real estate agents in the room? Shit. No, that's why... The reason I said that is because he's starting with a wholesaler. That's like beginning an event with Dracula. I'm just playing. Guys, my name is Jamil Damji. For those of you that aren't familiar with me, all the things that he said about me are somewhat true. I absolutely do love people. I love helping sellers. I love helping bring creative solutions to different problems. But what I really love doing more than anything else is elevating the relationship between wholesalers and real estate agents, because it has been strained, to say the least. How many of you guys in the room here have ever worked with a wholesaler before? A few of you. How many of you guys have ever had a text message from somebody saying, I'm a cash buyer, have a house I could buy? All right, sorry. I'm probably the reason for that. Actually, I'm definitely the reason for that. So, to just give you guys a little background on me, I've been in this business since 2002, so over 20 years in the game. I actually thought I invented wholesaling, and then I found out that I didn't. But the reason I did is because I bootstrapped my first deal. I was walking in my neighborhood, and I saw a house that was for rent, and I called this individual, and I asked her, because I had actually tried to rent the house a few months earlier, but it was still available. And I just asked her, hey, look, would you be interested in selling this house instead of renting it? And her answer was, sure, I'll sell it for the right number. And I asked, well, what would you want to sell it for? And her answer was $350,000. This is back in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where I began my career. And I happened to have a relationship with somebody who was looking for these types of houses that they would bulldoze and do some redevelopment on. And so I quickly asked him, how much would you pay for this? And I give him the address. And his answer is $400,000. So now I have a $50,000 problem to solve, because I'm not licensed. I can't just connect the dots. But I didn't want to just make 3%. I wanted to figure out how could I extract the difference between 350 and 400. But having absolutely no experience and no money at the time, I had set out on a journey to figure that out. And that's what led me to understanding the concept of equitable interest and how to trade in that. That first deal netted me over $47,000. And I'm talking about coming from a world where that kind of money was life-changing. So it set me on a path, a different trajectory. And I never looked back. Now, since then, I've co-founded the company Keyglee. How many of you guys have heard of that in the room? Great. How many of you guys have a good experience with us? A few of you. Okay, cool. How many of you guys have a not-so-good experience with us? One. Okay, I'll fix that. Okay, cool. But the fact is that in what we do in real estate, there's always going to be situations, there's going to be things that go right, there's going to be things that go wrong. And how we address them and how we transparently try to move on and move to the next situation and opportunity in the highest and best way possible, that's how we further the business. That's how we further the game. Now, since then, I've also been the founder and the visionary behind Astroflipping, which has thousands and thousands and thousands of wholesalers across the nation who I train to text you to ask if you've got anything coming to market that's in original condition or needing work that I can look at before you list it. Truly. And if that's been bothersome to you, I'm going to give you some reasons why you should be looking at those messages or those calls in a different way. Beyond that, I've been given a television show where we actually have showcased on national television how we operate as investors, how we're able to solve these situational problems and bring solutions to very complicated deals and very complicated stories, and do that in a way with high ethics and integrity, with the goal for everybody to win in the solution. So now, here's me younger. And why I put this picture up is, like many of you guys that are in real estate, we probably had no clue what we wanted to do when we were young people wanting to figure out where to go. For me, my parents said, Jamil, you need to be a doctor. That's the only way out. I'm of East Indian descent, so I had two choices, engineer or doctor. Engineer or doctor, or don't come home. And for me, I tried that. I went through that path. I went and got a bachelor's of science degree in physiology. I tried to get into medical school. I didn't get in. And that was really devastating to me. because my cousin who cheated off me on the medical school entrance exam did. He did. And that was really tough to swallow because, you think about this. I worked so hard. I had a near 4.0 GPA, and somebody else made the decision on what was going to happen to me in my life. How many of you guys in the room became real estate professionals because you didn't want somebody to have control over your destiny? Fantastic. Fantastic. And that was exactly the reason why I did it as well. What I want to share with you was what was in the mind of this youngster. Because at that time, I had very limited prospects. My mother and father worked very hard. They traded their time for money, and we barely had enough every month to make it. But what I had in my heart was a desire to do more, a desire to serve more, and to live a better life than what my parents had. And in that vision, I was able to find this incredible opportunity in real estate. And now, as Jason had told you, I'm in over 118 markets, and it's a nationally franchised company, and it has absolutely changed the trajectory of my life and hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the process. Now, that was a great accomplishment, but truly my most heartfelt and incredible accomplishment in my life is being a husband and a dad. This is my why. How many of you guys wake up every single day with people in mind in your life that you need to serve? Every one of us. And truly, for me, when I wake up in the morning, I think, how am I going to make my wife proud today? How am I going to make my children proud today? What can I do to make sure that I've left the day better than I found it? These are my two business partners and my sister. We founded Keyglee together. And if it wasn't for these very interesting people, Josiah Grimes and Hunter Runyon, when I first met them, Hunter was 17 years old. 17. Josiah, 21. At the time, I was 35. So think about that. Here I am, middle-aged, and I am about to embark on a partnership with two people who are extremely young. But they brought something to the table that I didn't have, and that was technical knowledge, the capacity to be able to scale what was happening in my head, what I was doing as activity, and turn it into a process. Now, as real estate agents, many of you guys are very successful because you hustle. You know what you need to do every single day to get business done. And that can give you a very comfortable life. But if you want to be a Jason Mitchell, if you want to grow your business to a place where it's astonishing, then you need to be able to systemize. You need to be able to take what you do every single day and put that into a process. And then you need to implant that process into other people's minds so that they can do it as well. And then you need to build teams that can motivate those individuals to carry on that process and also carry on the name and the integrity that you're trying to communicate to the people that are your clients. These are the 118 markets that we're in. I'm trying to make that entire map blue. Within the next couple of years, we'll get there. We're at 118 franchises right now. My goal is 660, and we'll hit it. Now, why listen to me? Why does Jason have a wholesaler opening his event? Well, I consider myself the undisputed champ of wholesale. And the reason for that is I've done over 6,000 deals, and that is my total spend in marketing. How many of you guys have done an incredible job of marketing yourselves through paid advertising out there? A couple of you, okay. How many of you guys have ever gotten a lead where you've had to pay for it? Okay, some of you, more of you are listening now. Okay, good. Imagine being able to create a process where you can do over 6,000 transactions and not have spent a dime in marketing. And the way that I was able to do that was partnering with real estate agents, folks just like you. And not only did I elevate my business, but I elevated every one of the agents who I worked with business as well. And we'll get into a little bit of that later. But I first want to address what's been happening in the market and what's been happening to us as real estate professionals going through these changes. And it reminds me of this book called Greatness, written by David Cook. How many of you are familiar with this book or read it? Okay, it's a $100 book, so I see why none of you put your hand up. $100 for 100 pages, and when I got this, as an ad, I thought, wow, how audacious is this person to charge $100 for a 100-page book? I have to buy it and see what's in there. And it was phenomenal. David Cook is an incredible individual. He's a sports psychologist who has coached some of the greatest athletes of our time. Incredible people like Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. These are the cream of the crop of what they do in their respective sports or industries. And he was looking for commonalities between people who have achieved greatness in life. And it was this capacity to hit this threshold of work and performance called 110%. How many of you have ever heard somebody say, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to give it 110%? You guys ever done that? You ever said it to yourself? Well, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean to give 110%? Well, what I understood is that the difference between 100 and 110% is the difference between your physical and your spiritual limit. The difference between your physical and your spiritual limit. And here's how he measured that. What David did is he created a stress test where he had different people hop on this treadmill. How many of you guys have ever been to a cardiologist before? Okay, so a few of you guys have high cholesterol like me. Well, what happens in these tests is they have these treadmills that increase in speed and incline, and they increase it to a point where you completely fail. And they want to test what level you can get to before you drop out. And after testing thousands and thousands of people, he compiled this data, and he meets this one Marine with this incredible drive. And he says to David, I'm going to be the most spectacular subject you've ever had. I'm going to beat every record. That's just who I am, as a David Goggins type of person. So he said, okay, well, let's get you on the test. And he starts. And he's going on this test, and he hits 23 minutes, 24 minutes, 25, and about 25 and a half minutes, his heart starts to beat like it's going to stop. And right around 26 minutes, he gasps for air. He's like, and he hits the button, and he quits. And he asked David after that, he says, how did I do on that test? I feel like I must have been the most incredible person you've ever had on that treadmill before. There's nobody could have beat me there. And he's like, you did really good. You did really good. I got a test. I got to look at all the thousands of subjects, but I can tell you're in the top for sure. Now, for the purposes of this test, he lies to the Marine. When the Marine says, how many minutes did I go? He says, you went 28 minutes. And I want you to come back next week, and we're going to beat that. And here's how you're going to do it. I want you to write down beat 28 everywhere. Write it on your phone's wallpaper. Write it on your screensaver for your computer. Put it on Post-it notes. Stick it in your car. Put it on the mirror of your bathroom. Everywhere that you look for an extended period of time, write beat 28. And when you come back next week, you're going to do that. And so the next week, this Marine shows up, and he gets on the treadmill, and he starts. The only thing that's different about this day is that there's a clock in front of him now. And as he goes, 25 minutes, 25 and a half, 26, 26 and a half, 27, 28, 28 and a half, his heart is beating. About just under 29 minutes, he gasps for air, and he hits that button. And he beats 28. He's so proud of himself. And David says to him again, that was phenomenal. You beat 28. That's great, but next week, we're going to do that again. Next week, you're going to come back, and I'm going to have you on this treadmill, and we're going to see where you go. And he shows up again. Gets back on the treadmill, and they start. 24 minutes, 25 minutes. Now, the only thing that's different is there's no clock in front of him now. 25 and a half, and at 26 minutes, his heart beats, and he hits that button, and he stops. Again, he asked David, how did I do? He's like, you did phenomenal. I can't believe your score. Now, for the purposes of this test, again, he lies one more time. He says, how long did I go? He says, you went 29. Wow. You're going to come back next week, and we're going to beat that again. And so the same thing. Writes it down everywhere, Post-it notes, screensaver, wallpaper, all the things. And he shows back up again the next week. David has that clock in front of that treadmill. And he starts 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, In just over 30 minutes, he hits the button. What does that tell us? That tells us that his physical limit was 26. It was always 26. At 26 minutes, he dropped out 2 times. He physically could not go any farther. But when he gave himself a new threshold, when he gave himself something to strive beyond, he was able to hit a completely different result. That is what elevates great people to that level, is that capacity to move beyond what our physical limits are. Now, why is this important today? Well, for many of us that are real estate professionals, we're getting beat up by Silicon Valley. How many of you have had some fear about iBuyers or this opportunity or solution coming to the market as some competitive monster that's going to come and take business away from you? Let's be honest. That's it? 10 of you? I bet you if I peered into some of your dreams, that number would be a lot different. And that's okay. These are incredible organizations, and I have absolutely nothing against them. I think that they've provided solutions and a new way to do business in the marketplace, and not everybody agrees with that, but they have absolutely made a dent. But how can you as a real estate agent level up to that? What can you do to compete against the Zillows, the OfferPads, the Open Doors? How do you present yourself in the capacity to offer the convenience solution? Because when we look at the individuals who select to sell through Open Door, OfferPad, or Zillow, they are choosing convenience. They are choosing speed and convenience over the service that all of us in this room can provide, which is pretty telling. And when you think about the psychology that drives that type of behavior, you don't have to think too far back to the last time you traded in your car. How many of us in the room have traded in a vehicle before? Every one of you have done business with an OfferPad then. Think about it. When you trade in your vehicle, you're going to a dealership. You know that they're going to need to resell that vehicle at a profit. Yet you choose to take less money to save yourself the hassle of having to go on Craigslist and having to sell and talk to people and go through all that. And there's thousands and thousands of dollars that you're leaving on the table. And you may have the thought in your head is, why would anybody ever take that OfferPad or Zillow or Open Door offer? And now you can understand why. Because when it was time for you to sell something that you didn't have a lot of knowledge about, that you didn't really care to have to do, you just chose the convenient solution. We've all done it before. Now, again, this landscape has been testy between wholesalers and real estate agents, and I completely understand the reasons why, right? The reason that has been a rocky relationship is typically agents view wholesalers in a competitive way, right? When you are doing your prospecting and you hear somebody that you're talking to has sold for cash to a company or corporation or an LLC, you might think, man, they could have gotten way more money if I had just gotten to them in time. Do you guys ever have that thought? Yeah, I can understand it. You may see wholesalers as predatory in the process, wondering or questioning, where does the profit margin for a wholesaler even come from? Is it coming from the equity of the seller, or is it coming from the potential in the deal? Now, wholesalers view you guys as cock blocks. I'm serious. I'm sorry, I hope that language didn't offend anybody, but the fact is that when I'm talking to a potential seller, and I ask, how come you haven't sold with a real estate agent? And I hear that they have one, I think, oh, no. All right. Well, there's definitely going to be some competition in me in this conversation, right? And we're absolutely going to be coming to a head. Now, because real estate agents have this theory in their minds that wholesalers are taking their fees from the equity of the deal, it has created a tension. And that tension is difficult to overcome. First and foremost, I want to address where wholesalers make their money. Ethical wholesalers. There's always going to be some individuals that are operating in a different manner. I don't represent them. I represent the people that have the heart and the goal to pay a homeowner 100% of as-is value. But you have to understand that when I'm talking about the type of property that we would trade in, a wholesaler would trade in, it's not going to be the beautiful house that is just newly remodeled and will sell in minutes on the open market. We're talking about those complex distress situations, the hoarder properties, the properties that are covered in feces. Any of you guys seen those types of properties? Yes, yes. The ones that have situational difficulties associated with them. Oftentimes, these houses are not financeable through traditional means anyways. And so the only person who could really make this deal work is somebody who can come to the table with cash or a private money solution to close very quickly without all of the criteria that an FHA or a conventional loan would have. Now again, one of the complaints that I've had realtors tell me about their situations with wholesalers is that we waste your time. We waste your time by contracting a house and then canceling it if there's a situation or a problem. How many of you have ever experienced this in working with a wholesaler before? Yeah, and that is very difficult. But what I also want to remind you is when you are dealing with a retail transaction, those are 60-40 at best. At best. Financing contingencies fall through, inspections fall through, appraisals don't come in. People decide to buy a car 3 days before closing. It happens. It absolutely happens. And so understanding that real estate is real estate and situations are situations and not everything is going to make sense for everybody, we have to be able to understand that if somebody comes into a situation and absolutely does their best and they have the financial capacity to do the deal and the deal doesn't work out, it's not a reason to become antagonists with each other. It's a reason to find a solution. So how can this relationship be repaired? Well, first and foremost, I would say that as real estate professionals, the goal would be to work with somebody reputable. Jason Mitchell wouldn't have me on this stage right now if he didn't feel that that was the case. I wouldn't have been able to have 6,000 transactions under my belt if I didn't have a reputation for being able to complete deals. Now again, there are some people out there who are not reputable. But being in 118 different markets, if you have a property, regardless of where it is in the United States, there's a good chance that myself or one of my franchises can assist you. How do you qualify a wholesaler? Because many of you are receiving these text messages or these phone calls, and it might sound like you have a situation that would work. If you've got a property sitting on the market right now that's 90 or 120 days stale, why wouldn't you want to have that solution at least as a try, at least as a shot? So how can you qualify us? How can you see, what questions can you ask to make sure that the person that you're talking to is of high quality, high ethics and integrity? Well, the first thing is you want to ask questions. For me, a lot of questions or a lot of sellers or agents that I work with want to know, what type of business do you do? Do you have a reference with a title company that I could talk to? It's a great way to vet somebody. If I'm working with a title company and I have a whole bunch of canceled files or I don't complete transactions or I ghost on earnest money or all the other things that you might hear of situations that transpire in these types of deals, you'd want to ask those questions to the title company. Does this buyer ever behave that way? You'd probably want to check, what are the last addresses of some transactions that you've completed? I want to see what the chain of title looks like. I want to see the type of fees that are being generated here. You probably want to find out what cancellation rate I'm working with. I can tell you that in our organization, we are 8 out of 10 deals complete. That's pretty good for an investment firm. You also want to find out, is wholesale the only exit strategy? For a lot of new investors, if wholesale is the only exit strategy, then they're not really looking to purchase the property. They're only under contract to sell it. I develop. I buy and hold. Many of my franchises do as well. And so because we are in these situations, because we're in this looking at this from the perspective of a possible project, I'm not always just looking to sell the contract as my way of completing the transaction. So again, why are these things important? Because surviving the market as it sits right now is going to require you to become more creative with the types of deals you're doing? How many have experienced a slowdown in business since rates have escalated? Yet it feels like we're coming back to a seller's market again, doesn't it? Like the phone is ringing. The problem is that the seller's expectation of price has kind of gone through, it's stuck in 2022. How many of us are sitting in here with a listing that's over 60 days old? How many of us are in the room here with the listing that's over 90 days old? How about 120? If you have a property that's sitting on the market 60 or 90 days, I can pretty much guarantee you the problem. It's price. It's absolutely price. That property is not priced right for the condition it's in. Because homes right now that are in solid condition, that are priced well, are selling very quickly and sometimes overlist in this market. But if you're at risk of losing your listing, because at that 180-day mark, the question is, are you going to stay on? Is it worth having your sign out on the lawn? Is it worth having these conversations with the seller who is not flexible on price? Or is it worth having the conversation where you come to terms and are real with the seller and say, your expectation of value is just out to lunch? Now, when you are on these listing appointments, the agents that I've been working with have had tremendous amount of success presenting my cash offer along with other solutions. Because I understand that as a real estate agent, you have a fiduciary duty to anybody that you represent. And presenting only a cash offer wouldn't be providing all of the solutions that somebody could potentially see. And when you are walking into these houses that have these distressed situations or the hoarder situations, and you realize and you know that this house is going to need a lot to sell for top dollar, you can start having these honest conversations. So the agents that I work with will walk into a listing appointment with 3 solutions in hand. At first, they will present to their seller if a tremendous remodel is done in this house, and I can, as a real estate agent, I can refer you to some contractors that can help you get there. You may be able to sell this property, and I'm just going to use imaginary numbers right now, for $400,000. But you're going to need to spend a tremendous amount of money to get there, probably $50,000 or $60,000 in kitchen, roof, electrical, plumbing, flooring, a lot of repairs. But if you do that, we could get you this amount of money. That's what we call the after repair value. And then there's as-is value. As is, we can put this on the MLS, but if we put this on the MLS, it's very likely that we're going to have a financed offer. And if you have a financed offer, there's going to be a minimum amount of repairs that you're going to need to do in this property in order for it to pass that inspection. And that might run $20,000 or $30,000. But if we do that, I think I can get you this price. And lastly, if neither of those solutions make sense for you, I have spoken to my cash investor, and he's willing to offer you X number of dollars, and he'll pay me the commission. Now, why is this important? Because when you're working with somebody and you're presenting those solutions, 1 out of every 10 of those sellers will choose me. 1 out of every 10, even when they're presented with all the options. All of the options on how to get more money, on how they can maximize the return on that property, 1 out of every 10 sellers will choose the convenient solution. So you're going to lose 10% of your business if you don't provide that. Think of it. How many of us did more than 10 transactions last year? 10% of your business could be quite a bit. How many of us lost a listing last year to an investor? Just a few of you? I think that more of you did, you just don't realize it. Facts. Now, again, one of the solutions that I've been able to provide to the real estate agents that I'm working with is to participate in the upside of the deals. How does that work? Well, as a real estate agent, if you are a fiduciary to whichever party you're representing, I have the realtors that have the sellers who select me as the solution represent me, not the seller. Because again, when they're on these listing appointments, there is no agency at that point. It's still a conversation. And if they decide to choose the cash offer, the agent will then say, okay, we'll give you an unrepresented seller document. You'll now be on your own, and I will be representing my buyer, who will be paying me my commission. And why is that important? Because I let the agents that I work with participate in the upside of my deals. If I fix and flip that property, rather than getting a 3% or a 6% commission, they participate in the profits of the flip. If I wholesale the deal, they participate in the profits of the flip. And it's fine for them to do that because they're representing me at this point. They get to dictate, and I get to dictate how much they're going to make on that deal. So now when you have a $100,000 or a $200,000 property that might make you $3,000 or $6,000, depending on how many percent you get on that deal, you can now make upwards of $20,000 or $30,000 on an opportunity like that. And in a market like now where you've got low inventory and you're doing fewer transactions, this makes a huge difference to your bottom line. How many of you guys would have interest in working with a cash buyer who would let you participate in the deals? That's a tremendous number of you. As we see the inventory shrink in the market, there's also an opportunity for you to work with wholesalers that are locking inventory up. How many in the room, show of hands, have cash buyers already that they work with that are looking for opportunities? That's quite a few of you. How many of you are having a hard time finding them opportunities to buy? Every one of you are missing out on finding and looking at the opportunity that my organization has available at any given point. If you're working with cash buyers and you're using only the MLS to find your properties, you are absolutely looking in the wrong place. We don't trade on the MLS. We trade in a secondary market. Now again, I want you to get in the mindset of thinking about and understanding that when you're working with a cash buyer, that how we earn our money is on the potential of the deal. And I want to briefly speak on that because I can still see some of you guys, the gears turning in your head thinking, well, I just don't see how this is going to be a benefit to my seller. I think this is still going to be problematic. When you're looking at a property that's in original condition or a distressed condition, it typically will need a pretty substantial renovation or investment in order for that new value to be realized. How many of you guys have gotten a phone call from an investor saying, you have this thing listed as though it's been completely remodeled? Have you ever gotten that call? I know some of you guys are not being honest in here. Some of you guys have gotten that call. And I know why that happens. I understand it because you're talking to your homeowners and they say, well, Susie and Jim just sold their house down the road for $500,000. Why can't I get $500,000 for my house? And you're literally looking at a piece of cat poo on the ground. You know the reason why they can't get $500,000, but you want the listing. So you say, I will try it. It happens. It happens. So again, that $500,000 value doesn't happen unless somebody makes that significant investment to get it there, right? After repair value and as is value are completely different. Where I make my money as a wholesaler is taking just a slice of that difference between as is value and after repair value. And the fix and flippers that I work with are happy to pay me out of their potential profits because none of them have time to be sourcing deals. Every one of them are out there on their projects, looking at material, checking over their job sites, making sure that their employees are showing up to the job sites and things are on time and on budget. That's what they spend their time doing. They don't spend their time sourcing deals on the MLS or talking to homeowners or trying to put these properties under contract. That's the delicate ecosystem that happens between wholesaler, fix and flipper, and real estate agent. Now again, how many of you, after hearing this, have opened your mind to potentially working with a cash buyer as a solution when you're talking to your sellers? Great. So I'm not Dracula. I'm happy to hear that. Now again, if I fix and flip, if I wholesale, my organization is happy to work with you guys and allowing you to participate in the upside of those deals. And that will always mean more than 6%. it'll always mean more than 6%. So if you're looking on how to elevate the commissions that you're making, you don't have to put yourself in the 6% box. Quite often when the real estate agents that I'm working with shake out and look at what they're making on deals with me, it's typically 10%, which is a dramatic difference from what you're getting right now. As the market continues to shift and the Fed continues to do what it's doing, inventory is going to do what it's doing, your business is going to continue to slow down, and having opportunities to work with people that will allow you to make more money on each of your deals will help you escalate your revenues, escalate what you guys are doing at scale, and hopefully make more money overall. I'd love to continue this conversation, so if any of you guys would like to get a hold of me or work with my organization, this is how you can find me. I'm on Instagram. Don't hold against me any of the posts that you see me make on that platform. I apologize in advance if I offend any of you for the stuff that I say. And also you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Jamil Damji. Thank you guys so much for your attention today. And you're going to have a great week. As I said, Jason started with me, and he's going to end with Tarek. It's going to be a phenomenal day. Thank you guys so much for giving me the opportunity to chat. Hi, brother.
Jamil.